Well, it's time now for our weekly African News Review, where we take a look at some of the big African stories this week. We're joined in the studio by political economy analyst Israel Mkhize from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Israel, good morning and thank you very much for coming in.
Morning.
I mean, the last couple of weeks we've been focusing a lot on Burundi. We saw the parliamentary elections taking place last month, despite the opposition parties boycotting it. Yesterday we had presidential polls happening, also opposition parties boycotting it, and they've been marred by violence, but they've gone ahead. I guess the result is a foregone conclusion, but it's a very serious situation. Yesterday I spoke to Amnesty International regional director from Nairobi, who are looking at the situation, and they're picking up reports already that there are some armed groups now gathering in parts of Burundi. That's surely not good for the region.
It's absolutely not good for the region, and I'm glad you're bringing the region in, because just next to Burundi in Congo, we've got the largest UN peacekeeping mission in Congo there. So with people fleeing out of Burundi going to the neighboring countries, they are going to trigger the latent war that's going down there. But you will remember that this is the third time since their independence in 1962, where post-election there is this uncertainty. In 1972, there was this Hutu-Tutsi loggerhead, and 93 it happened. But now it's disappointing because Nkurunziza should be catching up. That's a phrase that's being used. Should be catching up with the development not only around the East African community, but with what the declarations, for instance, of the African Union, the 2063 vision of democratic processes and ensuring that there is peaceful transition from one era of government to the next. So it's quite disappointing. I mean, you may have had 8 candidates on the ballot yesterday, but the tone of the environment, the condemnation from the UN, the condemnation from the America, I mean the threat of visa restrictions, because that's going to be very serious. Moreover, Nkurunziza, I think there is a compromise on the question of the foreign direct investment, which would be so critical after these elections.
I mean, Burundi, after all, is one of the poorest countries in the world.
In the bottom 5 of the poorest, and this mobilization from the guys who went out is a big threat. And
okay, but where governance or democratic processes seem to have worked well is Nigeria. We've seen the new president Muhammadu Buhari taking over in March. He's still yet to set up his cabinet. He visited America this week. He had good sessions with meetings with President Obama, congressmen, business leaders, and the Nigerians who live in America. It looks like it was a successful visit.
It was a successful visit, but I can safely say that Obama and Buhari, they mirror each other because of 2 factors. When Obama came into power, he was exactly like Buhari. He had 2 main issues that he had to deal with: the economy and the war. On the economic front, I mean, Obama came to an unemployment of 10%, and 10% unemployment is very big in America, whereas in Nigeria it's sitting on 23.4. Then also in the treasury, found an empty treasury with a debt of about 10 trillion US dollars. That is 72% of the GDP of America. The same thing with Buhari. He found an empty purse and accusations of corruption. So he had to look at his appointment with the finance ministers and so on and so forth. But again, they were confronted with the question of security and wars. With Obama, on one hand, he had to look at his wars in Afghanistan, which inherited Afghanistan and Iraq. So he made declarations about the withdrawal of the troops because it was very costly. Hence, when he appointed the head of the national defense, he called Penati. And when you look at Penati, he has got a background in finance. You know, he used to be a head there in the treasury. So he wanted someone who could quantify and calculate the cost of the war. Same thing here with Buhari. When he came in, he made a promise, I mean, on the question of dealing with the Boko Haram extremists. So you see that there is a correlation. So, but the problem now with the 2 of them, it's not easy to remove 5 heads of the army. It's a scary business. I mean, even if you were to remove a security of your own house, you would know that he knows quite a lot about it.
But he's shown that he's willing to take tough decisions in Nigeria.
Because dealing with the threat of terrorism, as I'm saying, it's a threat. Terrorism thrives on a threat, the possibility of danger. So if he looks like he can be ridiculous, that he can fire anyone, he's sending a message to his dictators that I can take any decision, I can partner with them.
It's also a very big Obama Africa week. He's going to Kenya later this week, and he's going to be focusing on good governance, security, trade and investment, and Kenya in the spotlight. Very briefly, how significant is this visit?
Well, it's very significant. Mind you that he's going to address the International Entrepreneurship Forum, which links, I mean, they've got a close tie. In 98, you remember that there was a bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Kenya, and his father is from there. I mean, to visit there at the second leg of his presidency, he was, in my view, trying to play down the sentiments, this overplaying of his Africanness, especially amongst the UN conservatives. But there in Kenya has just been overshadowed by the Southgate attack and the one that happened at the university.
The Westgate Mall attack.
Yes, yes, the Westgate, exactly. But they've got a very, very stable and rising economy, because the IMF and the World Bank, they just gave them good rating in terms of the resilience of the economy on being able to be sustainable. They've been growing at 5.7%. 2016, they're projected at 6%, to 2019 around 7%. So he is trying to strengthen these bilaterals and ensure that the American... You see that Africa has been moving towards the east, the BRICS and Chinese and so on. So I don't think that the West and Obama would want to lose the entire grip in Africa. So you'd go to the biggest economy in ECOWAS and the biggest economy there in
East Africa. We're going to watch that visit very closely. Thank you very much, Israel. We just ran out of time.
Thank you.
Thanks again. That's political economy analyst Israel Mkhize from the University of KwaZulu-Natal.